Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that my favorite band of all time, Queen, used to do that really set it apart from almost any other contemporary band I can think of. It's a particular harmonic progression, and I'd like to first of all demonstrate it and explain what it is, and then show you where they use it in their music. And then finally, I'll show you some surprising places where you can find it in other music. It might not be the kind of music you're thinking of. Okay, so let's start with this special progression that they use quite a bit. Now for that, I'm going to play in the key of C, and I'll play major songs, so I'll play in a C major. So here's the C major scale, and the scale has degrees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is 1 again. Now you can build chords on each of these scales. So for example, on the first scale, you'll build a C major. On the second scale, you'll build a D minor, an E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and back to C major. And when you talk about progressions, you often talk about them in terms of their scale degrees. For example, an F major to a G major to a C major would be a 4 to a 5 to a 1. Or a D minor to a G major to a C major would be a 2 minor to a 5 to a 1. Now, what set Queen apart was a particular progression that, again, as I've said, is not really heard in almost any other band or very, very few other songs. And this is the following. They used to play a 2 major to a 5 major to usually a 1 or a 4, so either a 1, which is a C, or a 4, which is an F. So I'll give you some examples, but really what sets this apart is the fact that you have a 2 major going into a 5. And this is really unique, and I challenge you, and I'd be happy to hear in the comments of other songs that do this. I know of a few, but I challenge you to go ahead and find songs from the bands that you love that use this particular progression. What's really found in a lot of songs is something like a 1 to a 2 major to a 4 to a 1. So but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking a 2 to a 5 to a 1. Now, just to give you a few examples, let's look at some of their famous songs. So you have a song like Somebody to Love. And when you think about it, and I'm playing it, I'm transposing it to the key of C major. I don't remember what the original key of the song is, but there you see it in the second half of this progression. So I have a C to a G to an A minor, and then it goes back to a C, a 1, to a 2 major, to a 5. Another example, another famous song of theirs, We Are the Champions. So if you think about the second half of the verse, and again you have this, if you paid attention, then again you have a 1 or a C major to a G major to an A minor to a 2, a D, to A5, a G. Another example in the outro to The Miracle, they have this sort of repeating bit. So again, they have a 1 to a 2 major to a 5. And then a D minor and a G, which is a 2 minor to a 5, and back to a 1. Another example, and I'll finish with that, and they're lesser known songs, like say, for example, Save Me. So in the second half of this bit, you have a C major to a D major to a G, a 1 to a 2 major to a 5. Now, as an exercise, you can check out, for example, other songs and try to find other songs in which they use this. For example, Love of My Life. And I can name others as well, but part of the fun is finding them, right? Listening to the catalog and identifying these songs. Now, really, for rock bands, this is not used a lot at all. Maybe you'll find older folk songs that do use this progression. But in rock music and pop, this is not used, and over the past, I'd say, 2 decades, this has become extremely rare. Where can you find this? Well, surprisingly, if you look at classical music, you can find quite a few interesting spots or composers that use this. You can think of the Bach Brandenburg concertos. So if you haven't listened to those, go ahead and listen and try to identify those places. I'll give you one example that I think is quite interesting, and this is a sonata, a piano sonata by Beethoven. So he wrote a sonata called the Sonata Pathétique, and this sonata has 3 movements, and the second movement is a slow sort of ballad. And the beginning of this ballad sounds kind of like this. It's not exactly the way it's played, but it's the gist of it. And again, I'm transposing everything to C major so you can spot the parallels easily, but it sounds like this. Well, if you've spotted it, then here you have a C to a G major to an A minor to a D and then to a G. So C, G, A, M, D, a 2 major to a G, a 5. And then it carries on and so on and so on. And actually it's quite interesting. If you look at the similarities, this is almost one-to-one as the progression used at the beginning of Somebody to Love. So if you take the chords that start off the Andante, the second movement of the sonata of Beethoven, the Pathetic Sonata, and you compare it to the beginning of Somebody to Love, you can almost draw a one-to-one correspondence. The tempo obviously is different. The weights is different, as the Somebody to Love song has like a triplet feel, and Beethoven does not. But harmonically speaking, they're strikingly similar. Now, I don't know if this is by mistake or by design did Freddie Mercury actually listen to Beethoven and drew inspiration from him. But either way, it's quite interesting that the two composers living so far apart used similar progressions. So it's interesting to see just how classically inspired Freddie Mercury was. And I think many of these progressions do come from Freddie Mercury's side of the band, and less from the Brian May, John Deacon, Roger Taylor side. That's it. I hope you learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.